start to our road trip.
At least it has got a name though, rather than just a number.
That's true. It has got a number as well.
Oh, good.
Welcome to episode 4 of the iGNiTiON podcast. As has always been the case, it's with myself, Lewis Gregory, Chris Lee, Ed Richmond and Phil Hesketh. So let's go straight into it this week with our week in cars like we always do. I think as last week, Phil keeps having the most interesting weeks in cars, don't you, Phil? Do you want to tell us what you've been up to?
I've had a bit of a week, yeah. I did, obviously my Saturday comprised of being at iGNiTiON, manning the gate.
Your Saturday job.
For Saturday job, manning the gate, keeping the riffraff out and letting the desirable clients in to come visit us. But aside of that, I met two very interesting ladies, both that seem to be totally invested in motorsports. There was Christiana Ireland, who is she's the daughter of Innes Ireland, who was a racing driver from the 20s, and he ended up in Formula One in the 50s, I believe. And her friend, who's also heavily invested, and this was her second visit to iGNiTiON, and that was Carol Corliss, a fantastically entertaining lady. She talked at me for an hour, and I really enjoyed it. Just absorbed every word she was talking about, and her passion for motorsport is boundless. And she wants to, because she's getting on in life now. She wants to share that with everybody. Her and Christian have opened up an academy. I'm not actually sure where it is, but I'm going to see them later on this week to find out more about the academy, which I will no doubt be sharing in the future. And then after that, I ended up buying another Porsche. That was my week in cars.
Pretty good.
So are you going to tell the group about the Porsche, or?
It's just a Boxer. It's not a very good one.
That's not the most interesting part of your week, though, is it? I mean, I'm trying to remember her name. Was it
Christiana?
Christina? No, the other lady.
Carol Corliss.
Carol. I met her at the first time she came to iGNiTiON the other month with that classic Alfa Romeo that she had for 50 years, and then only recently sold it, hasn't she? Because I think like a frozen shoulder, she can't drive it anymore. But she
stopped driving it 14 years ago when she was just 70.
Yeah.
And she managed to get it back from Milan across the Alps with herself driving and pedalling and her nephew changing the gears.
Yeah, because her shoulder gave out.
Yes.
And this is a 1929 Alfa Romeo 6C Mille Miglia, isn't it?
It's a 1929 1750 SS 6C Mille Miglia, yes.
Yeah.
Although it has been rebodied. And it's not an official Mille Miglia body now.
Right.
I believe.
But yeah, she drove that for years. She's done all sorts of racing in it and things like that. She's done the Mille Miglia in it, hasn't she, as well?
Yeah.
So, I agree. When I spoke to her, I thought she was an absolutely fascinating woman and like inspiring as well. Like, I would love to have her on here, and I'm sure we will at some point get her on for a chat, which would be good. But
Great.
No, very good. The other lady, her father, I think, won a couple of races in the mid-50s for Lotus, I think, when I looked into it. Is that right?
Yes. And I believe that the Innes Ireland was one of the sort of designers and creators of the last car that came to iGNiTiON with us, with these two ladies, which was I don't have it written down, sorry. A very interesting car. I'm sure you can put a picture of it up, Lewis.
Yes.
The red... Frank May.
I can't remember. Yes.
Frank May.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very cool thing. They're fascinating, and I mean, how highbrow guests are we getting to iGNiTiON now, man? How cool is that? Who thought that was going to happen?
You know, when Carol can just drop into the conversation that she was driving down to Silverstone with Damon and didn't even bother with his surname, which was Hill.
Yes.
And then she tells you how she had her feet tickled by a Fangio when they were in the paddocks at one point.
You've heard it here first. Fangio had a foot fetish. We'll put that on the title for this chat, shall we?
That's fantastic.
Fangio's foot fetish. Good. What about you, Chris? What have you been up to this week, much?
iGNiTiON.
Not that necessarily I see too much of the event some days, but cook an awful lot of bacon and an awful lot of sausages. But the main thing I think was actually, there'll be a photo to go up, but I'd never seen one on the road before. Just in line with Chinese cars appearing over here was a Leap motor, which was a TO3. So it looked god awful, but thought I'd look into it and was quite shocked to find out it's a full electric car, but under 15, you can pick them up for under £15,000 new, and that's everything. Well, obviously no road tax on it, and even in the Top Gear review and things, it actually doesn't come out horrendous. But and they're trying to skirt around some of the issues of being Chinese by tying up with, who's people with Alfa Romeo? Is it Stellantis?
Stellantis,
and trying to look to possibly build, I think, stuff out of Poland to try and alleviate the Chinese syndrome, shall we say?
Stellantis are literally
I dread to think what they like to drive, but 15 grand for a city car.
Is that with import duties and everything covered on it?
You can buy them for under 15k new in this country.
That's crazy.
Would you buy one?
I might for the wife.
I suppose it leaves more money for your toy.
China, doesn't it? Sorry, Lewis.
Go. What were you saying, Ed? Sorry.
Just saying how cheaply they must be made in China.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah,
you get
crazy.
shipping in Texas.
By the time they're shipped over here, you dread to think how much they actually originally cost.
Yeah, mind you, something I read was that a lot of the Chinese car manufacturers are actually losing money and being supported by the state because it's actually their strategy is to bankrupt all their rivals. So they're quite happy for them to lose money because I know a lot of them are in quite big financial trouble, aren't they? But the government just keeps bailing them out, I think. So yeah, by us buying them, or we're literally funding the demise of our own car industry, unfortunately. So one of the things we should really push at iGNiTiON more is like support the cars you love, otherwise they won't exist anymore.
No, very true.
Manual petrols. We all need to buy.
Yeah, and just the brands you love as well, because like they're going to have to transition to electric, and you're probably going to end up buying a car you don't really want soon. They might make a good car eventually that ticks all those boxes, but you kind of got to buy that intermediate car for the brands to exist, haven't you? Otherwise, they're all going to go bankrupt in the next few years. Like I bought 3 Alfa Romeo Tonales, and they are pants. They're okay, but they're not. It's not great. But they're now doing their first electric cars. But I want Alfa Romeo to exist into the future, really. So
it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I'm sort of in the process of ordering a new work car, and companies like Tesla are offering such good efficiencies on their cars in comparison to the German brands. So, for example, I've been looking at the i4 and the efficiency, and when you're travelling all over the country, it's a big deal. The efficiencies for BMWs aren't there. And I've seen recently that BMW are launching a new electric SUV, which is actually much greater range, much more efficient, but it's gopping. So it's whether or not you're prepared to buy that to keep BMW afloat.
Yeah.
Does it still look better than you, Ed?
For me?
Does it still look better than you, the gopping BMW?
Questionable. Maybe better than you with your top hat, but
it's not an unusual look at all. Ooh, there we go.
The horseman.
It was all the rage when Phil was a kid, wasn't it?
We all wore these. Keep the rain off when we didn't have roofs.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. What about you, Ed? What's your week in cars been like then? You up to anything?
I've also been to iGNiTiON this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Helping Phil on the gates.
Yeah, thank you for that.
There was some good cars there this week. I'll save which one was my favourite for later. I had one evening last week. I went for a drive with Joseph, and we went up to the peaks. We did Home Moss, which was good fun. Stumbled across an old 928 as well, so I'm not sure if it was an auto or manual, but it was good fun driving along the roads with the 928 in tow. So,
is that another car that you won't buy?
Would I buy a 928? They're all autos, aren't they, in budgets? So probably not.
That's an interesting discussion point for another day about automatics and future potential, which will tie in to chat later. But just to be clear to everyone as well, Joseph is your son, not your partner, isn't he?
Yeah.
just so everyone knows. Good. Okay, so my week in car. No, absolutely not. And anybody who links it to your ownership of your 3 Series is completely ridiculous. And that's offensive. So nobody better do that. Okay, so we don't want to get caught in that Top Gear Jeep Wrangler debate, do we? So, my week in cars, I've had a bad back basically for the last month. So since the whole time we've been doing this podcast, I don't know if it's actually linked to doing the podcast or what, but so I've not really been myself in cars for the last month. So I've not been able to do much. I can't get in any of my cars. One of my cars is off for repair, so it's all fairly restricted. And even at iGNiTiON at the weekend, I'm usually outside doing parking, get to speak to everyone, see all the different cars that are there. But I was inside doing the till because of my back, really. So it's been a bit restricted. But a couple of things, really. Let's say my 78 Ferrari 308's in for repair to have the diff looked at. I managed to speak to the dealership today. They've got it all stripped down. I'll put some pictures up at the moment. They've actually found a brand new diff inside the car, which is not what they were expecting to see. And he said it's just been adjusted wrong. So they put it on a bench and measure it with torque spanner type things, and the force that it takes before the diff unlocks is too much or something like that. I can't remember the exact terminology he said. So that he's got to send some of the shims off for machining, which they're off at the moment to be done, and then they're going to keep adjusting it until they get it right. But hopefully that means my bill isn't going to be anywhere near what I thought it was going to be. It's just, stripping it down, a few shims, machining it back together again. So that's a bit of a result. And then secondly, from my week in cars, I followed some of our advice from our YouTube recommendations last week and watched some Auto Alex, which is not my sort of natural choice in car YouTube normally. But because I like, I can get lost in Ian Tyrrell and Harry Metcalf and stuff like that, a bit more factual, I suppose. But
a bit more middle class.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I watched Auto Alex's road trip to, and sort of all the videos that build up to it in the French hot hatches, the Renault 5, was it 205 GTI, and Clio Williams. Yeah, really good, and it made me even more depressed that I can't do anything at the moment because I just wanted to be out driving cool cars in Europe with my mates, which was a bit depressing, but good. If anybody wants to watch it, you can kill a good few hours watching that, because there's multiple, I think 3 or 4 episodes on it.
Builds up to it, and then they've raffled off the, is it the Peugeot or the Renault? I can't remember now.
The Renault 5 Turbo.
Is it the Renault 5 GT Turbo?
Yeah, the other two, they're owned personally, aren't they? And there's no way they're getting rid of them by the sounds of it. But no, it sounded cool, and it's a trip I'd like to do at some point, I must say. I know Ed will be with me on that. Like, he loves a French hot hatch, don't you? So.
I do.
Right, so moving on, we've got a couple of subject points to talk about this week. So the first one, we've done a lot of look into the past in the previous episodes, when we were younger and all the, what was a peak area of car and all that kind of thing. But looking towards the future, what are the next generation doing? Are they into cars? Is there still going to be a market for classic cars, for the generations that are coming through and learning to drive at the moment? Are they going to be able to drive them? What are the barriers barriers to entry into sort of the enthusiast world? Because I don't know about you guys, but I think it's a fantastic hobby and environment to be in. Meet friends through it. You get to go and do adventures. It's awesome. But if there's no, it's like a bit like the housing market. If the bottom falls out of it, the whole thing crashes, doesn't it? So you need that next, generation of people coming through. So it's just trying to work out, what's happening there. So before I sort of go around to everyone, I've been doing some research and got a few things that are relevant, worth chatting. So I don't know about you, but I initially would assume that the younger generations that are coming through are probably not that interested in cars, and it's getting less and less interest as time goes by. Because when we were younger, and going even further back when Phil was younger, the cars were sort of sex symbols. They were stars of films and TV shows, and it was like, it was a big deal, wasn't it? And that seems to be gone.
Definitely in Europe. I don't know what it was like in Asia.
America, though, definitely as well. Like, it's huge, wasn't it? The car. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, very good. But well, yeah, Tokyo Drift. But in America as well, like massive. But so my sort of thoughts were: are the younger generation, not interested in them? If you think about the environmental push, the sort of woke society that's coming through, all of those kind of things, does it it doesn't bode well for car culture, I thought. But I did some research, and Haggerty did a survey called "The Future of Driving," and they asked Gen Zers, who are they? Are they ones below us millennials? I don't know. I don't know where.
Maybe under 25s.
About 4 below Phil and about 3 below me, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, so that asked them whether they would be interested in owning a classic car. Was the survey, and 60% expressed interest in owning a classic car, which is quite a lot. And the same survey was done quite a while ago, but for people of the age that are referred to as baby boomers, and only 31% of those expressed interest in owning a classic car. So we're talking about double the level of interest for Gen Z versus baby boomers, which is not what I would have thought at all. And the average across all ages was 47%. So it's actually suggesting that they're actually the next generation that are coming through at the moment are more interested in cars than we are, or the previous generation, or potential of owning a classic, which I was quite surprised about. Millennials were showing 57%, so that's I think our generation. I don't like to call myself a millennial, but me and Ed are just about in that, aren't we? At the earlier end of it.
We are technically, yeah.
Technically millennials. But 25% of millennials already own one. That in the States, that is, in America, which is quite interesting. The younger generations, though, they're more interested in modern classics or later classics, 80s, 90s, noughties cars, Jap cars, that kind of thing, which makes sense. And that also ties into the current car market, because in the last few years, the car market's taken a bit of a dip. Prices have softened, but the area that they haven't softened is in modern classics. That's the one that sort of stayed fairly buoyant, which is really interesting. There was other surveys I read about. Continental, the tyre brand, they did a survey in 2024 in Europe and found that 54% of 18 to 30-year-olds see cars as a status symbol still, which I was quite surprised about, because I didn't think that was the case either. So I thought that was very interesting. And I'll just run through some figures before we then go open up the chat to everybody. Here's some other factors, though, which I was a bit... Driving licenses. So the quantity of people getting driving licenses has gradually declined at 17. So I'm trying to find, I don't know if I've made the notes, the exact figures here. Basically, there was a survey done, or some details from like the 90s, 2012 and 2024, and there was a massive drop in quantity of 17-year-olds and percentage of 17-year-olds who had driving licenses or who wanted to get driving licenses at that time, which was really interesting. But there was also surveys that showed that most of them wanted to, but they couldn't afford to, or whatever reason, and that the actual number of people below like 25 with driving licenses is pretty stable. So I thought that was quite good. And then just talking about the future, one of the things I see as a bit of an issue about driving licenses is manuals, because soon you're going to only be able to learn to drive in an automatic, because it'll be in electric cars. And at the moment, there's no intention. I thought there was, but I did some research earlier today. There's no intention in the UK to make it so that if you pass an electric car, you can drive a manual. Which, so after 2030, for instance, if you want to then drive a manual, you're going to have to do a separate test to specifically learn to drive a manual.
What if you just learn a manual in the first? I tell you can just learn the manual.
Yeah, but there's no new manual cars.
No, but there'll be old ones, and I didn't learn to drive in a new car.
Yeah, but most people do. That's the thing. If you think about like
No,
incentives,
but what I mean is you've
Yeah,
still got
like
that. What I
Island
mean is it's
AA.
not a totally separate. If you
No.
choose to start that process, you can still start that process.
you still can
with
start
it.
that process, but it will be incredibly rare. So
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm
not like
saying
bikes
is,
where you've got to do one and then uprate or anything. It's
so that's what is probably going to happen is that people will learn in electric, maybe get into cars later on in their life and realize they want to drive a manual, and then they're going to have to do a separate test or retest to get into a manual. And that's going to be a barrier to ownership as I can see it at the moment. And that's why I wonder whether I bet there's some maths to do here on car eras but there'll be a point in time where classic automatics might become quite desirable because there'll be a whole generation of people who will only be able to drive them because they're not going to go and
but
do
they
a
may
test.
not want a classic. That's the. I mean,
No, but that's the whole point of this is like, is there a future for people? And if they are, what's it going to look like? And if they can't drive manuals, does that limit the future value of manual gearbox cars? I don't know. It's an interesting.
Probably.
Yeah. Now, there's been discussions, and there's discussions amongst lobbyists and things that I've read about there being once you've learned to drive in an electric, you can drive a manual anyway. But the conversation about that, they need to, what I read was they need to leave it to be long enough until most of the usable everyday cars are not manuals anymore. They're all off the road. And the manuals then are such a small proportion that it's not an issue that all these people are jumping into cars they've never driven, that they're licensed to drive, basically. So that may happen in the future, but I think there's going to be a period of time, potentially, we're quite a way off it yet, we're still 5 years away from it, but there's going to be a period in time. When you think about it now, though, as a business owner, if you go and buy an electric car, you get all sorts of allowances and tax incentives and things like that. So if you're running a driving school, you're much better off buying an electric car than you are buying a manual petrol car or diesel car as your vehicle.
yeah,
And that's what you're going to do.
Flip it on the insurance side, and I know things have changed, but you've had experience of it as well on electric cars at 17, 18 years old. What insurance are you going to get on an electric car?
But I think from like driving instructors, it's not really a problem.
No, but once you've passed,
no, it's a different thing.
that's
I
what I'm
agree.
just trying to think of. Is just thinking that out.
Also,
I've mentioned a 15 grand car, mind, so there's an option. But
when I passed my driving
ridiculous.
test, when I passed my driving test, my car was £600, not 15 grand. So what cars are they going to drive once they pass their driving test? They're not going to drive a brand new car.
Fiestas. When my daughter didn't, but most of her friends, their parents would be buying them because it was actually the cheapest thing to insure was a brand new Fiesta.
Brand new.
Yeah.
People are buying their kids brand new cars, though.
Yeah.
Oh.
I could just add to that. One of my friends has just bought his child a 25 plate Toyota Yaris. That's a hybrid, automatic, obviously, and it's £280 a month, including the insurance.
Yeah.
For a 17-year-old driver.
Maybe that's what will happen. Is they're trying to grab a whole generation of people and get them away from older cars from the get-go. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you're not meant to buy anything nowadays, are you? You don't own anything.
Interesting you say that, because when I was doing my research on the younger generations, that's one of the things they actually prefer is like not outright ownership. They like shared or things like that. So the idea of like communal cars and things is something that's appealing. But I think that's for everyday use, but maybe different from a toy. So that's sort of my sort of assessment of it and of where things are. What do you guys think? Ed, have you got anything to add on this subject about future people?
I've got, obviously we just mentioned, I've got a 10-year-old son, and as a car guy, I've already started toying with what I'll do when he turns 17, because as the group are aware, Joseph's also into cars. And there is a potential classic car insurance for much cheaper insurance. So actually, I sometimes look at things like Mark 1, MX-5s, cars like that, sort of slightly lower power cars, but fun, engaging. They'd learn to drive in it, wouldn't they? It's a manual car. They'd learn rear-wheel drive early on with low power. Most of these electric cars, going on to the electric car thing, I mean, my electric car's rear-wheel drive. Chris, I think yours is rear-wheel drive as well, isn't it?
Drive, yeah.
And torquey electric rear-wheel drive cars, which generally are pretty torquey, have a habit of going sideways, don't they? So actually learning it in a 1.6 litre MX-5 is probably quite a good place to start. So I think there's a potential. But like you say, if this manual gearbox thing comes in automatic gearbox thing comes in too soon, it'll have to be an automatic MX-5, which sounds pretty terrible.
Or Joseph might be one of the people, though, because of his dad's good training, that goes and specifically tries to learn on a manual. Because there will be that option, but you'll have to go out of your way to find it, won't you?
Yeah.
And he'll be maybe we should start a manual gearbox driving school. Maybe that could be
Probably
ignition.
essential.
Yeah. Anyway, no, that's a really valid perspective, I suppose, from having a son of that age. What about you, Phil?
Well, there's a couple of views on it. I've got 3 employees at my garage, as both of the viewers will know. I run a little garage, and I've got 3 under 35-year-olds working for me, and they're all obviously madly into cars. And I think all 3 of them have only really come into the motor trade so as they can mess about with cars, and they've become stuck in the trade, as is the way with most mechanics. You get into it to try and mend your own car and end up stuck in it for life.
Never fix your own car.
Yeah. or you get a garage with them to fix it. So yeah, they're all very into having modded cars, classic cars. One of the guys that works for me, he has quite a selection of classic Volkswagens. No doubt he'll be a friend of Ed's by the end of the week. But also I can see a lot of all the motorsports we watch nowadays, like Formula One and the GT3s that we watch on TV. All the guys that do that sort of driving are doing it on what are them things?
Simulators, yeah.
They're all doing sim racing, and I think a lot of the youngsters now are doing the sim racing and experiencing what it's like to drive older cars or sporty cars, and it will drive their passion to own them in the future. That's my view.
That's a good perspective, isn't it? I suppose the same with computer games. I think that's what drew a lot of people into like the 90s Jap car scene, wasn't it? Like Need for Speed and things like that. Mm. So there's always hope for that, I suppose. Yeah. What about you, Chris? You got anything to...
I think it goes partly in hand with where Phil was going with that. I think if somebody's got the inkling, or, for example, parents or the influences, I think they'll always go down that route of wanting to be able to drive a manual, to experience that, to then... As I say, there are options out there. I think insurance is a big factor. I mean, I've got a 21-year-old daughter. Her car choices are deemed by what she can afford to insure on the road. She would love to have something different, but you know what? Things like Fiestas, small engine Fiestas, they're so much cheaper to insure than a 1 Series. You know, there's reasons for that because the people have accidents in them. But when you go outside of that, I think in general cars will lose. I think most cars in general, as we've seen, 3 of us have got electric cars we use for work. They're all autos. They're nice and easy. You can just plod along in them. For daily use, don't see an issue. I think if somebody's got an inclination, parents, influences, whatever, for that type of thing to go down that route, they'll always find a way to have or own that classic car. So that means then obviously getting the right level of, doing the right tests at the beginning. And I think they'd learn to drive because, for example, I taught my daughter how to drive before she had some lessons just to make sure she could actually pass a test. I think that's just how, if you've got that influence in your life, that's what will just carry on forward.
I mean, if I take my sort of situation in point, I mean, I didn't grow up in a car obsessed environment at all. My oldest brother, Phil, was sort of into cars, but he's not a car enthusiast. He just was doing quite well at a young age and had nice cars.
I'm not his older brother, by the way.
No.
Or his dad.
Or my
grandfather. Your brother.
No, and he, when I was younger, he had like Audi RSs and TTs and things like that, but not, not what I would call enthusiast cars. They were just new cars that were nice at the time, and that would have probably been my influence when I was younger. Was more that kind of thing, and yeah, that's not necessarily tying up to being an enthusiast. So would I have gone out of my way to learn learning a manual gearbox car? Probably not. I really started getting into cars once I could drive, and that's where I then sort of started down the track of liking the older cars and stuff that's a bit more interesting and all that. So it's I question myself in that situation. Would I have been the person who'd have gone out of my way to learn a manual? Probably not. But now I'm car obsessed and it's my life. But would it have been a barrier to entry for me? Possibly. That might have stopped me even doing it in the first place. That's something I worry about.
Do you think it's self-fulfilling though? As in, when I look back on when I was sort of in my teens, so 13, 14, 15, you had older friends or older siblings with faster cars or more engaging cars, and you went out and, they drove around in these cars and you were impressed, and it gives you that sort of excitement about turning 17, you get your own license, your own sort of ticket to freedom, and then you become a car person there. I think that's quite shaping. Like, I remember going in a Clio Williams when I was probably 14 or 15, which was owned by a mate's older brother, and it was a sort of a wake-up call, I suppose, for me. Like, what I was after with cars. So
yeah,
I don't really know what influenced mine. I mean, my second car was a Peugeot 106 GTI, but I don't know why I went down that route. My dad had Peugeot 405 505s. My mum had an Astra, so I don't know where quite that came from. And I suppose I watched Formula One, but I didn't watch masses of motorsport or anything before I started driving. I'm not really quite sure where that influence came from.
You had a gap.
I watched the film Rita, Sue and Bob 2 and instantly wanted a Rover SD1 and had three.
Same with Chris. You had quite a gap from sort of sporty cars for a while, didn't you? And then there was a group of us that started going out on drives and things, and you got back into it that way. So,
but I'd done motorsport and everything over the year. I mean, I'd done the NERB. I mean, that's kids.
That hadn't led to you owning
kids. That was my own kids, I guess. The gap for that, because I did. Everybody knows here, Trevor, kit cars. It was probably kit cars actually, which spurned my interest a bit back. And then that led on to motorsport, sprint days and bits and pieces, doing stuff for TVR Car Club, Borough 19. So I guess it probably was motorsport and track days and things which probably pushed me more. But insurance was always an issue. Insurance was always ridiculous. Or any car I wanted, I couldn't when you do. I was doing 25, 30,000 miles of work. You can't, if it's your only car, you can't have something nice when you do that sort of mileage.
And just to be clear again, Trevor's not your partner, is he?
No.
Although.
Could we just make the point here that Trevor is even older than I?
Only just.
Is he?
You just bought his Porsche, didn't you, Phil? And going back to the news art segment from earlier.
I did just buy his Porsche, yes.
Excellent. Okay, so just to sort of round this one out then, on young people, one of the things I thought about, a lot of people have said when I've had this conversation, because I feel like, we run iGNiTiON, we've got a tiny but a bit of influence in the car world on the local community, and it's a bit of our duty to make sure the next generation are included in this. So whenever I'm out in the Ferrari and people pay interest, I try and get them to have a good look around it, kids sit in it, all that, whatever. And it's been the case with whatever cars I've had, and I think we're all a bit like that. I think we're all really, really pro for that. But I started thinking, when I was 20, starting to get into be able to insure something interesting, there was a lot of cars you could buy for about £1,000 that were good fun. I had MR2s, Volkswagen Corrados, Honda Prelude, all sorts of things, like every cheap car you can imagine. But at the time, you could buy them all for under £1,000. And a lot of people say that part of the barrier to young people getting into it is that the car market's gone up so much in that time. But I did a bit of looking. When I was 20 to now, £1,000 adjusted for inflation is about 1,800 now. And I could nearly get an MR2 now for that. The good ones I used to buy, the third revision 1995 T-Bar, the right spec and everything, they're a lot more money, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000. But there are plenty of cars around there. You can get MX-5s, plenty of those. There's quite a few Alphas you can get for that kind of money. There's a number of Jap cars, Celica's and things like that. So, and weirdly, we've got a young lad at work. They are, and he, is always looking at insurance. I know what Chris is going to say. He probably puts too low miles on it, but he also has 6 points because he got caught doing 100 and something down the Chris Akari straight, as we now call it. But if he didn't have that, he would be able, at 21, he'd be able to afford to insure any of those cars quite easily, probably for under £1,000, which is, I think it's actually cheaper than it was when I was his age, because I think I was paying £2,000 to £3,000, not adjusted for inflation, nearly 20 years ago. And so now that would be like £5,000 or £6,000 or something silly like that. So
I read something about car insurance and about how when obviously we were all younger, boys paid more than girls for car insurance, and now they've had to sort of level the playing field with some sort of regulation in place. So actually, I think for young lads, it's almost a prime time to be getting your first exciting car.
well, I think those cars as well are not the ones they go for anymore. So I think the insurance statistics are a lot
I
better
don't think
for
a Z4
youngsters.
is particularly bad. I
No,
think my
well,
daughter looked at a
he's got one.
Z4 and it was no worse on something like a 2.5 litre Z4 than a run of your mill diesel, shall we say, saloon car or something.
Chris looked at, I remember a Celica, like a Gen 7 Celica 140, 1.8 VVT, whatever, and it was nothing. It was under £1,000 or so. It was crazy, and I thought, that's a great.
Yeah, but you can only use it one day a week because of the mileage you put on it, probably.
No. I mean, his is silly because of his situation with his points. But if he didn't have the points, he would be able to have normal insurance and normal mileage, and it would be, doable. And that is cheaper than it would have been when I was their age. So I don't feel like the cost of buying the car or the cost of insuring it is actually as big a barrier as we think. Maybe it is for the things that we used to drive around in. So like a Corrado VR6 isn't £1,000 anymore, is it, Ed? They're 7, 8, 9. I mean, I've been trying to buy a cheap one for ages.
I think I had a £3,000 insurance quote on a Peugeot 306 when I first learnt to drive, or when I passed my test. So actually, realistically, things were expensive. I guess the only annoying thing nowadays is you might get stuck with a black box.
Yeah, for the first year maybe, and then off after that. The other interesting thing is I think fuel at the moment is the same price it was when I was younger. I mean, it's £1.30 a litre, isn't it, at the minute?
It's cheap.
It was about 80
It was 75p when I passed my test, I think.
Yeah.
A gallon.
But I first... Go on, Ed, sorry.
I thought it was about 90p when we were 17, which was, 20 years ago?
Maybe when I passed my test it was that, but I remember it being like £1.30 or something, fairly early on. So I don't think it's, and if you adjusted that for inflation, that's probably still cheaper than it is now, So I don't think that the barriers are there as much as people think they are. But I think it's what do you want? If a young lad wants a BMW 330 coupe or something, or an M140i or something like that, no chance. But to be honest, that's not really an enthusiast car anyway. If a young lad wants, I don't know, there's a whole list of cars you could buy that would be great. So maybe that's the thing. If you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 and you're interested in buying something enthusiastic to drive and go up, come and speak to any of us or the other guys at Ignition, and we'll guide you down the route of something that will be exciting and fun to drive and own, that's probably quite affordable in comparison to the other things that are out there.
One of the youngsters that works for me jokingly tried to get a quote on the Porsche that I just bought from Trevor at Ignition, and interestingly he got a quote for £2,000.
Right, that's not bad, is it?
22-year-old lad working
Bog?
in the motor trade, driving a 22-year-old Porsche. I didn't think £2,000 was out of the way at all.
No, that's pretty bloody good.
Was that Bog, Phil?
Yes, that was Bog.
And he's put like 2 cars in a ditch as well, and he can still insure that for £2,000.
Yeah, one of them being mine, obviously.
Yeah.
Incidentally, we did have a customer turn up at Ignition on Saturday. He just I think he said he'd had 3 or 4 pints. I can't remember which. And he bought a Renault Twingo RS on eBay following his drink, and he only paid £800 for it. Now that's definitely a young enthusiast car, really, isn't it? And what a cool thing to drive around in.
A really cool car, no doubt. Okay, right. We've talked about that one for quite a long time, but it was a good subject, and I think we'll maybe have another one in the future of you've got the equivalent of £1,000 when I was 17 to buy. What can you buy now for £1,700? That'd be or £1,800. That'd be a good future conversation point to see what cars we can buy, and perhaps we'll do some insurance quotes as if we were 21 or something. Okay, so moving on, going more into the past this time. So, best moment in a car. Can you picture what was your favourite, best experience in a car? And we'll try and keep this PG as well. So with that in mind, we'll start with Ed.
Obviously, we had a brief about this before chatting today. And obviously, ruled out all the non-PG ones already, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, I've got them on video though. If anybody wants to have a private screening of those.
So I was thinking about sort of, all the way through my driving career, and there was a road trip which Chris and Lewis were on several years ago, where we went to Wales, and I took Joseph, my son, who was probably 6 at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that was great. A bit like we were just talking on, touching back on what we're talking about, sort of trying to get the next generation into cars. And we switched between a number of cars during my trip. And the highlight, obviously, for a 6-year-old was, at the time, Lewis had a 5348, which we drove probably a couple of hundred miles on during the trip. And at one point, maybe one of you two can refresh me on the name of this place, but we went to a beach.
Is it Black Rock Sands? Is it Black Rock Sands?
Black Rock Sands, yeah. There was a couple of highlights that day. One was when we decided to park the cars nearly in the sea, and when the tides started coming in, we all drove off, and Lewis left the Ferrari to nearly get flooded. This 348 is actually for sale on Auto Trader at the moment. If anyone wants to flood it, 348.
I haven't got it up for sale, but yeah, someone else has. Yeah.
And the highlight for me was when Lewis suggested that Joseph had a go at driving me the 348. So Joseph, age 6, sat on my knee, had his first driving experience in a Ferrari, and for me, as a 6-year-old, that had been the best day probably of my life. So I thought
and he did better donuts than you on the beach.
Yeah, he was pretty good at it. So obviously, I was controlling as well. So, so yeah, I think that was my highlight. I thought it probably. And it was really nice sort of evening, that, wasn't it, on the beach? And when we drove to that hotel at night, it was a really nice day, really nice road trip with good friends, and great fun.
We got told off a bit on the beach, didn't we? I don't think we were even doing anything that silly, but we got told off a little bit. Someone didn't like us driving on the beach, even though you're allowed to. Yeah, that was good. I mean, I remember you telling me afterwards, because we then took the cars down to Classic Motor Hub for a show, didn't we? And you drove to Ferrari for a long stint, didn't you, across the Cotswolds? And I think you were saying you bonded with the car quite well on that as well.
Yeah. I think the 348 is, as we've touched on before, is such an underrated Ferrari in general. And that trip, it came alive for me. So.
In the new Luca film, Luca says with the shit Ferrari. It's not it's not a real Ferrari, which
we need an audio clip of that, Lewis.
Yeah, as a new car, I'm sure it was, but as a classic car, you forgive a lot of its foibles, and it's got all the character and charisma you want, and I really liked it. Maybe I've got bad taste in cars, I don't know.
The soundtrack.
The noise with a tubey on it, yeah, brilliant. I'll insert a little clip now, just so you can hear that. Anyway, Phil, what do you reckon? Best experience in a car, PG?
I'm going to have to go for 2 very good experiences in my cars. One was 5 years ago, and that was the first time I bought an almost new car. It was my M2, which is the newest car I've ever bought, and probably always will be the newest car I've ever bought, because none of the new ones nowadays actually float my boat at all. So that was an achievement, especially paying for it contactless with my phone. I was expecting bells and whistles and all sorts to happen, but nothing happened. I just said, "Here's your key," and off you go. So that for me was an achievement buying that, and I've had a lot of pleasure out of the car. But then more recently, because I can't decide between the two, but actually driving the car would be this one behind me now. Taking it on the trip this year to Sardinia. It was just a huge achievement. Being able to do 3,000 miles in a car that I've had the engine out of 3 times in a year to cure various ailments that it got, and then it was faultless, virtually faultless, the whole trip. I did carry a lot of tools with me for that trip, as I'm sure Lewis can.
Thank you. Yeah.
Point out. Didn't use any of them on the Porsche, though, did we?
Well, I've got a photo that might suggest otherwise, but anyway, I'll put that on.
I was keeping out the sun.
Yeah,
Lewis.
yeah. What was there a particular moment on that trip in the car what was there a particular point that you can remember that as a highlight?
I can't pick one in particular. It was just a fantastic trip. The place was brilliant. The company was fantastic as well. It was well organised, well orchestrated. We had a great time. And no, I think if we do some more trips, then we should get get our viewer to come with us.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure he'd like it.
I'm sure he would, or she maybe.
Or she, yes.
Or they.
Chris, all day. Chris, what do you think?
Probably Nürburgring, BMW taxi. So passenger in the E60 M5 around the Nürburgring.
I thought you were going to say in your Mrs. Mini around the Nürburgring.
That was had quite a good time. Like, that Porsche, I reckon he sold that Porsche after that pink Mini overtook him. But no, I've never been. I don't think I've ever been in a road car quite like that around the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
Just interrupting you on the Nürburgring. Did you notice on the Grand Prix this weekend in Singapore, the Japanese officials are doing bus trips around the circuit that you have to pay an absolute fortune for, but it is just the public highway.
Yeah.
With some barriers around it, and these people are
the week later,
paying for that bus trip.
Yes.
Yeah. Go a week later and drive yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Who was driving? Was it Sabina or anything like that?
No. It was that era, but it was another racing driver. I've got his name somewhere, but I couldn't find the piece of paper for the ticket. But that took a year worth of planning. I mean, we're talking about it was when E60s were common on the road, so must have been what I reckon, maybe 2010, 2011, maybe. And it was incredibly difficult to get booked. A year in advance, and just by an off chance managed to get one booked for when we were going.
Very good. Well, I was trying to work out my favourite moment in a car, and there's a few bits that really have mostly been in recent years that sort of settle into my head. Two are in Alfa Romeos, two are in Ferraris. The oldest one was I drove to the European trip in a 1970 Alfa Romeo 105 series GT Junior. Drove out there with my friend James, drove to south of France, across to Spain. Great, it was like 40 degrees, phones turned off because they were too hot, all that kind of thing. Got lost because the sat-nav died. It was a real adventure. First time I've taken a properly old car on a trip like that. And the car was faultless, didn't miss a beat the whole journey. It was fantastic. But on the way back, we went over to Italy, went to the Alfa Romeo Museum, which was really cool, and then we went over the Alps, and there was a snowstorm as we were going over the Alps, and we were driving over the Gotthard Pass in like gale-forced winds, snow blasting down onto the road in this old car on Yokohama AD08 sort of semi-slick raced tyres. It was just crazy, and at the same time there was a Red Bull race going on with these. I don't know what they're called. You know the motorbikes, or they're sort of more like scooters with tiny engines. They've also got pedals. Do you know the kind of thing I'm talking about? It looks like a bigger push bike, but with a motor as well. So you can either pedal it or it runs. And it was I remember my brother having one when he was like 16 years ago. It was a thing in France for quite a bit. I can't remember the name.
Were they called Pooch or something? Pooch?
I don't know. I'll put a picture. I'll find a picture and put them up. But anyway, there was a race going on from like Andermatt to somewhere across the Alps. But they obviously didn't realise it was very early September, that it was going to be like dumped with snow. So there's all these guys riding these mopeds along, freezing to death, like trying to pedal them up the hills and stuff. And I come flying past on the Alpha and everything. And it was just brilliant. So that was up there. That was a really good one. I took the 4C on a couple of trips in Europe. The one that I remember enjoying the most was 2 out of 3 of you guys were on, was when we did that first trip that Phil came on down Route Napoleon, and then we had a bit of time in South France. Chris was driving the 4C, but we swapped. So you drove my Ferrari for a bit, and I drove the 4C up the what was the name of the pass?
It was the Monte Carlo rally route, wasn't it?
The Col de Torini.
Yeah.
Yeah. was driving that, and Phil was behind me in his M2, and Johnny was behind him in the M3, and the 4C just like came alive in my hands on that road, because it was like the perfectly suited road to the car. And the 4C is massively outgunned by Phil's Porsche and by Phil's M2, because it was like 550 horsepower or something. And Johnny's was like, I don't know what it was, silly figures, wasn't it? Nearly 700 horsepower or something Johnny's was. But the 4C on the road, it could just get out the corners faster, it could brake later, and you know, there was a gap building, and just you wouldn't see that gap building on any other road, but on that particular road it suited the 4C so well. It just felt, you know, when you get into like a swing with the car.
Is that the trip we also did, Red Rock Road, which was
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so that was my moving on to the other one, which is in a Ferrari, was my 348 on Red Rock Road, which was spectacular. The road's amazing. Loved that. But weirdly, and this is a strange one, the one that means the most to me, I think, was driving through a small town in Spain and sitting at the traffic lights in my green Ferrari last year. It's a town I've been visiting since I've been a kid, and I've always loved Ferraris and always obsessed with them. Never thought for a moment that I'd own one. And I was driving through this town, which I love, you know, immensely. It's called Palamos. It's this little fishing town in Catalonia. And yeah, I'm just sat at the traffic lights, and I look to the side, and you see your reflection in the glass, and I'm sat driving a Ferrari through Palamos, and it was just like a pinch yourself moment. I couldn't believe it. I was like, who am I? And how has this happened? I don't understand. So yeah, so even if my life falls apart and I can't have a Ferrari anymore, at least I've had that one moment. So that's probably the one for me. And it was stationary. That's the stupid thing, isn't it? That's how cars can be. So that's good. Okay, right. We better move on.
I think what's beautiful about that is it highlights how, for car guys, it's such an ambition, isn't it? Certain cars are such an ambition. You spent your whole life working towards a car, and you reach your goal almost, and it's such a moment, isn't it, in a car person's life?
Yeah, it's weird how much there is that ties into it, and emotion and all that kind of thing. It's a funny thing, cars. And people who are not car people think we buy cars to show off, don't they? And this is something that I find really frustrating, and maybe a topic for another day, is that people think you buy stuff to show off, but you don't. You buy it for you and what you love.
Yeah.
You don't care what other people think about you. You don't view it as a status symbol. Maybe when you're first getting into cars, you maybe view it that way, but eventually it's just all about what you want to do and what you love, you know. But no, that's good. Okay, so before we go on to our last point, which is the fantasy road trip, let's talk about modern classics briefly, because it's a term that's bandied around quite a lot. But I don't, you know, what does it actually mean? So what constitutes a modern classic? As a bit of a subject. So I don't know. We've not had a lot of time to prep for this one, but Chris, what would you say constitutes a modern classic?
That's a good question. I'd probably go back to anything. For me, it was probably my heyday. It's probably pre-2000, to be truthfully honest. Anything around that sort. Anything after that starts, I think, becoming to me is just more modern. It's a difficult one because I think it means different things to different people. And when you look at the definition of what a modern classic is, I think anything for me, it's something very personal. I think it's anything I would like almost to see retro modded. Almost, it's got to that point for me. That's where I start seeing something as a modern classic. You know, people started sort of defining a Porsche Boxster as a modern classic, or maybe it isn't for me. It's got to be earlier than that, I guess. I mean, almost. I wouldn't necessarily. The era almost of the Renault 5s, the Peugeot 205s. I don't know. It's just that I wouldn't necessarily use those as examples of modern classics potentially, But
they're 40 years old now, Chris.
I know, but that's, as I say,
They've got black number plates and
you
free
grow up in a
cars.
generation of cars. You grow up in a generation of cars, and I'm not sure I move
Yeah.
forward from that. It goes back
Yeah.
to some of the previous conversations we've had where we were talking about pinnacle of cars, or whichever was on the first podcast. And the problem is, that's my era of cars. I'm always going to go back to that, I think.
Well, they're probably full-on classic cars now, that era, I would say.
Quite scary, really.
Yeah. But I think your first point, you're in the right territory there with around 2000. I think that's probably somewhere. What do you think, Phil? Is it too new for you to have a comment on? Or?
You over? No, I think it's very subjective, and it does depend a lot of you on your nostalgia, what you remember growing up and what you would like to drive that feels modern, but perhaps without, this doesn't quite sound right. Reminds you of your older stuff, but without all the foibles, without it breaking down all the time. So for me, I think one of the things I absolutely love is the Fiat, the Abarth 595. So one of my aunts had a Fiat 500 Abarth, but an original one, a bit like the one in Shadow Automotive, little tiny thing. I used to love going out in that as a kid. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but nowadays I think that sort of car is what I would class as a modern classic.
The modern iteration of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd say 595, the 695. Even if you look at what's the Spider one, the 124.
Yeah.
It is a modern version of the original.
Yeah, it's crunching on it, isn't it?
It's got some of the character, hasn't it? It's carried over that character.
It's got to have character. Absolutely got to have character.
Okay. What about you, Ed? You got an opinion on this?
I don't think it's necessarily the age of a car as such. I wrote down a couple of bullet points which I think are probably relevant. I think there's rarity, whether or not a car's interesting, sort of whether or not it's a fun, sort of unique car. Often race heritage. So I know we've talked about things like sleeker GT4s and stuff like that, where there's a bit of a race heritage, and I think that pushes it towards modern classic territory. The other thing I was thinking about Ferraris, and I was thinking about some of the more modern classic Ferraris, and I was thinking it's generally the end of an era. So the last manual gearbox Ferrari, the last naturally aspirated Ferrari, and I would say these cars become modern classics because it's sort of an end of an era, and it's something we should try and hold on to. It's a pastime we should try and hold on to.
That's interesting because that could bring you to some much more modern cars that you wouldn't necessarily associate with being a modern classic. But you think about like a Ferrari 458, for instance, being the last naturally aspirated, that probably is now bona fide modern classic, isn't it?
I would say so. It's beginning to appreciate for what it is as well, isn't it? So.
Yeah, it's a valid point. There's one of the guys I watch online, Matt Farah from the Smoking Tire. He has like a graph that he talks about a car's lifespan, where it comes out and it's cool, and then it gets older and it gets gradually less cool until it gets to a point where it's like at peak tragic, and then it starts to get cool again. But some cars don't. Some cars just stay there and don't get cool again. So I thought we could play a little game called Modern Classic or Tragic. And I've got a list of cars that I've put together, and I thought we can perhaps one at a time, or I don't know, we'll figure out as we go along. We'll go through the list and see whether we think these are modern classics or tragic. Now, I've chose them all because they've all got something a bit different about them. I'm not just going to pick a Volkswagen Bora or I don't know, whatever, an Audi A6 or whatever. I don't think mainstream cars like that are going to go into this category unless there's really something, let's say they're in a film or something like that. But so I tried to pick what, from the outside might look like an enthusiast car, but we can sort of work out whether we think it's tragic or classic or going to be classic. So first one, Chrysler Crossfire. So for anybody who doesn't know, that was what was that? That was like late.
What's special about that?
Late 2000s Chrysler sports car. I think
old
Clarkson
SLK.
said, yeah, it was based on an old SLK. It has a 3.2 litre V6, but it did have an automatic rear spoiler.
And a
Jeremy
corrugated bonnet.
Corrugated bonnet. Clarkson said that it looked like a dog parking its breakfast.
That was being polite.
Do we think that it's relatively rare? Don't see many of them on the road?
Thankfully not. We don't see them very often. I did see the on the other day, but it's tragic. Move on.
Yeah.
Less we speak about it, the better.
Anybody else? Another opinion? Tragic or classic?
Tragic.
If it was still the SLK, that could be classic, but no, it's
The
tragic.
Crossfire's okay. This is interesting because I think this car may have changed recently. Audi TT Mark 1. What do we think?
It's getting there, I think.
Yeah,
It's going to be a sought-after car, especially for, as we were saying earlier,
It's
people
affordable.
youngsters that want to drive one.
it's affordable at the moment. 900,
Design
1800
icon.
quid, you can pick them up.
Now go back in time.
Baseable interior.
Yeah. So go back in time a little bit. When it first came out, it was sort of slated quite heavily for handling problems, wasn't it? And
Underpowered.
yeah, there was lots of jokes about hairdressers and things like that, weren't there, with Audi TTs at the time? But like, if I look at the plus sides, I think they're aging really well, and it was a concept car for the road that you could actually afford as well. Like most concept cars for the road is very expensive. This was not. This was affordable. Interior build quality is fantastic. A lot of billet aluminium. Everything that looked silver that you touch was cold. It wasn't plastic. And it
Wasn't like my Nissan where the paint flakes off everything.
No, absolutely not. They feel really robust. And like I say, no other car looks like it since, really. There's not been a design that's followed
You know it's
that.
an Audi TT. You could see it in a silhouette. You could catch one little bit of it.
Yeah. The next TTs didn't follow that. They kind of started to look more generic. That looked really different. But on the downsides for it, I think they made a lot of them. It's a long time before that's rare, isn't it? An Audi TT.
Was it the TT Sport, the
Quattro Sport?
Quattro Sport? I think it's always the sort of rare special edition,
The Halo
of a car
model.
like that, which is, and I think it's the Quattro Sport, as you've just corrected me on, which is the one which will be worth something fairly soon.
My older brother had a Quattro Sport when I was younger. I said earlier about him having cool cars. He had a TT Quattro Sport, which has got the Recaro front seats, no rear seat. It has like a roll bar and netting and stuff behind it. They're a cool car, no doubt. Ford Cougar with a C, not a K, as you corrected me earlier, Ed. So that was the V6. They did a V6 and I think a 2-litre petrol coupe in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think it shared the underpinnings with the Mazda MX-6. I might be wrong.
I thought they were more Mondeo based, just a Mondeo with a sporty anorak on. And particularly tragic.
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 Agreed. Why though? Why is that?
They didn't drive like their looks suggested they should. It was meant to look quite sporty, but it was just awful.
It was a family car.
Yeah, I think two-door family car.
I think it looked sporty then. I think now it just looks pants, doesn't it? I think they just got it wrong,
But
maybe.
we've got evidence that manufacturers are capable of doing sporty a long time ago, and it's still looking sporty nowadays. There's a lot of cars that have stood the test of time. The Cougar is not one of them.
How about a Jaguar X100 XK? So that's the late 90s, early noughties one, not the later one. 4.2 litre V8, J-gate.
I would say modern classic for me. I think they're beginning to look good, actually. I think they need to be stanced slightly better. Often they look a little bit high, but beyond that, I think they're a lovely car.
So
And they've also got rarity on their side now, haven't they? Really?
They've all broken.
Yes.
So like a late XKR with the BBS rims, and yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it's a cool car. I don't know whether the gearbox would put me off of it. That's the only. I've looked at them a few times, and I'm just not sure whether because they only came in auto, didn't they? Whether that would put me off.
It'll be good in 5 years' time, though, won't it? So.
Yeah, well, you can drive.
Maybe we should all buy them.
We buy them and sell them on to.
Well, thankfully, I have a license which allows me to drive a manual, so
Yeah.
no requirement.
What about an MGF or TF?
I've got a bit of experience with TFs. I drove one quite a lot in my early 20s. And as we all know, I do like a little roadster. And I thought they were pretty good. Like, obviously, build quality was terrible, but they're mid-engined with 160 horsepower engine. They were actually quite quick for what they were in their day, like quicker than MX-5s really. So, and there's a company on the side of the A1 which seems to have bought all the
Yeah, so
engines.
they're not rare because we know where they all are.
Not far from ignition.
But they've managed to force the prices up, haven't they? Because they've stripped 90% of them for parts. So there's only 5 that have ever got sale. I would say that's probably heading towards modern classic. Obviously, there's a history of MG, and that was pre-China, wasn't it? So
I would argue that is modern classic, but tragic would be.
yeah, I probably agree. It's fun.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that.
You know, coming from a mechanic, I've been a mechanic all my life, and they were just so hideous to work on. I can't wait till they're all off the road.
I thought you
Tiny
made a
little
fortune
box,
from
put your
them.
hands just.
How many head gaskets did you do on on those engines?
I was so relieved when they invented steel seal.
So were trophy cars in the A1. That's what keeps them in business. How about the old new Volkswagen Beetle? So not the one that came out in like 2010 or something like that. The one that was 1999. Do you remember it had a flower holder
Tragic.
in it?
Definitely tragic. It wasn't enough like the original Beetle to wear the name.
It's certainly not. It's middle ground to me because I actually quite like them for what they are, but they're pretty awful.
From my perspective, I feel like the original Beetle is like one of the classic cars, isn't it? It's like one of the ones that's got a huge supply. Like that and the Mini are like the two obvious starting points, aren't they, in classic car world? And the original Beetle, like the engineering behind it was fantastic, wasn't it? And I feel like that Beetle was a Golf Mark IV in a dress, and that was just an insult on what was quite a cool car beforehand. And it just wasn't a Beetle. There was nothing about it. There was a Beetle in my... And I suppose for me, for a car to go into classic status, it's got to have a bit of integrity about it. And I just feel like that car didn't. It was badge engineering at its worst, is my sort of view. But that's just my little rant. But then you could argue... Mark 1 TT had the same underpinnings, but anyway.
Yeah.
We won't go to that point because that argues against me, so we'll gloss over that one.
And the Bora,
Nobody ever does
wasn't it,
that.
as well, would have had the same pinnings.
Yes, the Bora, the world's fastest and best
Classic.
handling car.
The Lamborghini Bora.
Yes, the Maserati Bora.
Maserati Bora, yeah, of course.
Right, so Chris has got a Nissan 370Z, so you know it's quite obvious.
350.
They're 350, so we all know, guaranteed, that's not a future classic. You'd have one of those. But how about a Roadster model? How about a Roadster? Do we think that could be a future classic? Why not?
It's just preference. Just doesn't. I don't think they're pretty enough. Actually, I don't know. They're just not. Look at other Zs, definitely, but just not the 350, the 370. I think after they just become too modern, too modern shape, too blah almost.
I
think the 350 Coupe is good.
And probably the 370Z in hardtop are future classics. I mean,
Yeah,
large
really.
engine, naturally aspirated cars. I mean, what were their competitors in by that sort of period in time? There wasn't really much.
Porsche
I think the
911.
350Z, yeah, but they're a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And also look at the balk factor. There's no balk factor on a 350 or 370. You look at Porsches of the era, there's a huge balk factor. I think for me, the problem with 350Z Roadster is just gopping, isn't it? Somehow they cut the roof off it and they made it ugly. And I think an ugly car can never really be a future classic, except for a Lada Riva. But that's a debate for another day.
Okay, so just being conscious that we're running out of time, I had a few others here that I'm just going to rattle through but not say anything about. So other contenders for the challenge were Toyota Celica 7th generation, Mini Coupe or Roadsters, Porsche 996. Everyone's got different opinions on that. But one I would be interested in your opinion on, just because I've owned one, Alfa Romeo Brera.
I've also owned a Brera and I loved it. I think
Did
the
you?
styling is stunning. They look fantastic. They drive nearly as well as they look.
They
It's
drive
just the
okay,
liability.
don't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a ProDrive Brera S 3.2, which one of our lovely customers bought off me, and he this year took it for a drive around Europe. He kept sending me photos, making me feel quite jealous. And the Brera is interesting. I've owned 2 of them myself, and every time I keep looking at them, I'm looking at them now because they're stupidly cheap. Like a couple of grand buys you a Brera, 5 or 6 gets you a really good one. And I always, it's one of the prettiest cars on the road for the money. You need to pay a lot more to get something prettier, but you drive it and it's just a bit
Underwhelming.
Yeah, the Pro Drive is
they're often
okay.
a bit
backing it.
neglected.
I remember backing it with the Corrado review, Lewis.
Yeah.
And obviously, I've driven a number of Busso engines, Alfa Romeos, and the engine is the centerpiece, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the 3.2 V6 is Chrysler engine, isn't it?
Holden, I think.
Is it Holden? It's just not a particularly character blending, in my opinion. And
No, I agree.
Maybe post having driven Busso engines, and also, I mean, I'm unbiased, but I think the BR6 is a characterful engine as well. And backing it with Corrado, they were quite equal cars, I'd have said, on that drive. But the Corrado, I thought, was more, well, the noise is different level, in my opinion. And I think when you've got a V6, that's a large part of it.
I think the Brera is going to be the prettiest modern classic of today's podcast.
It's an interesting one because it is so pretty, isn't it? That is the problem with Brera. It's a car which you want parked in your drive, I think.
I kind of like the idea of doing a road trip in a Brera because it is fundamentally a normal car underneath, so you shouldn't really have too many of the downsides. They're quite well made for Alfa Romeos, and they're comfy, and they've got decent. But then you've also got this car that looks like, you know, it should have been coach built by one of the greats in Italy or something like that. So
Zagato or something. It looks
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. With the right wheels on them and all that, they look the Pro Drive spec with the big telly dials, it just looks incredible. So I feel like they are a future classic, but they're tinged with the Alfa Romeo depreciation. I don't know if they're ever going to really go up or not. So that's my
problem. Is a lot of them are dogs on they're well abused is the problem. I think if you found a really nice one and didn't have to pay a lot for it, then yes. But otherwise, I think that most of them have been well abused. I haven't seen many with all working front lights, and I'm not sure how well they've lasted.
No, well, with any car that gets cheap, that's complicated and got a lot of things on it, they don't get maintained well, do they? Okay, right. So we need to move on because we're running out of time. But I thought that was quite a good little point, and maybe we can recreate another version of Classic or Tragic in the future. Fantasy road trip. So this week is my turn, and I sort of alluded last week a little bit to give everyone a heads up of what I was going to do. So we're driving down to the south of France. We're leaving England, driving down the motorway to Grenoble, and then we're doing Route Napoleon down to Nice. And that's really the best bit of the road. I love Route Napoleon. It's really scenic. It's got complicated, twisty switchback roads. It's got open, winding roads. It's got everything. I love it. Long straights. You name it. Route Napoleon's got it. It's even got a section with a toll booth halfway down it, so you can even do a bit of toll booth racing as well. So it ticks every box for me. It's probably not the most technical driving road. Well, it's definitely not. But for me, it's got that mixture of everything where you can go through the twisties, and then there's like a 2-kilometer straight afterwards. So you can overtake anything you're stuck behind, and you very rarely get stuck in train of traffic down Route Napoleon. And then at the end, you're on the Riviera. So not only is it a great road, it's also a journey because you're traveling along it. A lot of good roads you have to go and drive just for the sake of driving that road, whereas Route Napoleon takes you somewhere nice at the end of it as well. So there's a lot of reasons why I love it. The car that I'm going in is a classic GT car, which was the challenge. It's a 1978 Maserati Camzin. Now, I fancied one of these for a long time, but I've missed the boat. They were cheap at one point. 60,000, 70,000 got you a good Camzin. Now they're more like 150, maybe a bit more. I think there is the odd one for sale for less than that, but they're one of these. They were this era of Maserati when they were owned by Citroën, and because of that, they've got this hydraulics for everything: steering, brakes, pedals, everything. So they're very expensive to maintain, very rare, and they rotted like all Italian cars did, and the bodywork's really bespoke. I think it was Bertone, really sharp angles. So they're expensive cars to fix and keep on the road and ensure and maintain. And restoration's huge. So they've got very expensive. But for me, it's a 70s GT car. It's iconic. I love Maseratis. I've had quite a few of the sort of the cheaper end of the market with Maseratis. This one's in Pinot Verde, which is the exact colour that my Ferrari 308 is as well. So that's what I'm going in. And that's the road. Now you guys have got to find a a classic GT car. It has to have 6 cylinders or more, 1979 or older, and has to have 2 doors, the engine in the front. That was the criteria. So who's going first? Was it Phil? Were you on the cheaper end of it?
I was not blessed with a budget of very much. Just got a mechanical budget, I think. I think my budget was 25,000. So I thought, well, I can't be flash with the cash with the GT car I'm buying. So I'm going to have buy something that's going to get the women, looking and thinking they're going to love this car. This is proper porn star American.
You wearing that shirt
car.
then?
In this shirt, they'd be all over me. I can guarantee it. Oh, I've dropped the mic. Look. So I bought a 1967 Corvette Stingray. Hang on. I did have some more details on it. I've got lots of details there. 1976 Corvette Stingray T-top in red. It is an automatic. It's definitely fulfills the cylinder requirement, which it is an V8. A whole 5.7 litres. It will do the 0 to 60 sprint in just 7.4 seconds. There was 2 options available. There's the L48, which, are you ready for this? Was a staggering 180 horsepower.
Wow. From only 5.5 litres.
5.7. The one I've gone for, because I have got a little bit of spare money, I've gone for the upgraded one with the steel floor, not the fiberglass floor. That's the L82. That's on the dynos, pushing out 210 horsepower.
Wow.
So I will be absolutely absorbing the twisties and probably overtaking nothing when we get to a traffic train. But it has got plenty of room and is a big, comfortable GT car.
If you asked me about one of those like 2 years ago, I would have laughed because they were really cheap at one point. They're like £7,000 or something. You get them, but someone brought one to Ignition. Do you remember? They let us park it inside last year, and I got to move it around in the car park a bit. And I must say, it made a lot of sense because everything felt very well made inside. The auto gearbox, I drove it around the car park a couple of times, felt good.
I can remember you driving it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like riding just riding the brake. It was easy, power steering. And I thought, in comparison to my old Ferrari, which was an absolute, it's hard work to move around to do anything in it. I thought, I can see the idea of this. So I actually think that's a brilliant choice and would be awesome down Route Napoleon and across Europe. Well done.
Thank you.
And I would say park next to a Camzin for a car that look awesome.
We would have the girls all over us, wouldn't we? Especially
one thing we've learnt about cars is they don't attract girls. We know that for a fact. But those 2 cars parked next to each other would look like cars that should be about the same price category, wouldn't they? But one's like 150 to 200,000 and one's comfortably under 25,000. That's an achievement. So that was the point of this challenge. Well done, Phil.
I had enough change to buy a small recovery truck.
that might be required. Probably not for you, though.
No.
I think they're quite reliable, those old things, aren't they? Okay, who's next?
That'd be me, 25 to 50k.
Go on then, Chris.
Quite a few options, actually. I could go bigger engine even than Phil. I got a 7.2 litre possibly, which was the Jensen Interceptor Mark III. That was within budget.
You won't be making it to Route Napoleon in that.
But there was also, again, as I picked last week, MGBs come into it with a V8 in them. Again, not too bad, but I managed to track down and settle on a 928 4.5 litre Porsche.
Good choice.
Which is available in the south of France as we speak. So I don't have to worry about driving it there. I can just pick it up and enjoy it.
What year?
79.
Oh, just on. I was going to say they weren't far into the 70s, were they? Those?
No, they were 70. They came out they were at the Geneva show in 77. Okay. But then they had slightly different releases throughout those next couple of years. But this was a 79.
And I'm guessing for your budget, you can get quite a good one.
Yeah, I've spent 40,000 euros on one. It is rather nice. Just full refurb, respray, everything.
Is it manual?
Yes.
Oh, that is a very good car. Would you park it next to the Camzin and the
it would look a bit strange. It would look out of character, to be truthfully honest.
It wouldn't look maybe the same caliber of cars, which is funny because it's obviously more than twice, or it's twice the price of
Yeah,
Phil's,
but
isn't it?
it's yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Stingrays came up when I was, were one part of what I was looking at as well. But
it's probably the best car out of the three.
yes,
no doubt
I mean, I
about
could always
that.
pick the Jensen Interceptor, but as you say, I do want to get there.
Yeah, that's true. You'll have working aircon in the Porsche and all sorts. Good. That's a good one. You'd enjoy that.
Yeah.
I think it would still look cool. Doesn't matter. Does it still look cool?
It is brown inside, but it's quite nice. It hasn't got the really nice interior as mine.
What about you, Edmund? What have you?
Well, I was thinking, and I thought it's got to be a 1970s Aston Martin. So I found an Aston Martin V8. I thought I'd represent the UK on the continent. I found a 1977 Aston Martin V8, which was a Vantage spec for 89,000, which was dark blue, which I think looks pretty classy on a classic Aston Martin. Surprisingly quick car, actually. Quicker than a Ferrari Daytona of the time, which I was quite surprised by.
Yeah.
In truly English fashion, I was looking at the power output, and it said it was somewhere between 385 and 450 horsepower, which I thought was quite a wide sweep. So I'm going to say
It was a lot for the time, though. That's a lot of power back then.
Surprisingly powerful car. And
because it came in a 5.3 or a 6.3, I think is why the difference.
Yeah. I think this was a 5.3, to be fair.
Is that like a Virage or something like that? Is that what that's called? Or
it was called Aston. It's just called an Aston Martin V8, and then the Vantage was like a spec in the day, so it was the Vantage spec.
Okay.
And it's got a sort of muscle car.
Yeah.
Really good looking car. So
Timothy Dalton era Bond, wasn't it? The Living Daylights, that era.
I actually thought cheap for it was. I know it's a lot of money, 89,000 for a really tidy.
What year?
1977.
That's a lot of badge and car for the money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you'd feel like a proper cad in it, wouldn't you? So,
so I think that's a brilliant choice. I mean, you guys are obviously having some impact on the female species with your vehicle, but I'm going to stink of petrol and have oily fingernails with mine. So there's no interest from anybody as usual. Good. Okay. Well, that was good. I enjoyed that. That was really good. So, who hasn't done the fantasy car challenge yet? Who hasn't? Is it you, Chris?
I haven't. No.
Okay. So it's your choice for next week. Have you got one yet, or are you going to wait?
I don't have one yet.
Okay.
We'll back.
TBC, but your turn next week. Okay, good. Well, I think that's about all we've got time for. We'll probably run a little bit over on that one, but some good things to chat about there, and I've enjoyed it. Hopefully, you guys have. Is there anything else anybody wants to add? Has anyone got any other business point this week? Any hands up?
I don't feel like I've got one this week.
No.
We've all talked out. It's probably a bit too late anyway. Good. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching and bearing with us. Hopefully the audio is better this week as well. We're trying to improve that every week as goes by. Please like it, comment. That would be really useful. It helps with the analytics and other people finding it. Please subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you all next week for the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye bye.